Hello, I'm Ohio University President Dwayne Nellis. I'm sorry we cannot be together today in person, but thank you for joining me to dedicate the new historical marker that details the lynching of Christopher Davis in 1881. Our focus today is not something that should be discussed on only one afternoon on campus. Instead, this is a topic we should bring attention to again and again in the days and years ahead. The death of Christopher Davis was a horrific event that took place during a terrifying era of lynchings, violence, and racism. It's hard to believe that something like this could happen in Ohio and around the country and not that long ago. It's heart-wrenching to still see acts of racism in our country and around the world today. This is a time for change in our country. This must be a time for change. And in order to move forward, we need to acknowledge our past and learn from it. We need to honor people such as Christopher Davis, who suffered due to racism and injustice. And we need to remember those who were not treated as though their lives mattered. We must show that Black lives do matter. We have a responsibility at Ohio University to be leaders in diversity and inclusion. We work every day to support students from all cultures and backgrounds. Our students learn to be leaders in their communities, leaders who work with and support their neighbors of all backgrounds. And we work as a university to support the vibrant communities where each of our campuses are located. It is our duty, it is our honor to work for justice, equality, and peace. We can do this through the education we provide our students, and we can do this through our actions. As president of our fine institution, I pledge to you that Ohio University will do everything it can to promote diversity and inclusion. I hope you'll join us in our efforts. Thank you.
When I moved here to Athens County all those years ago, it was with high hopes and plans for the future. Plans to start a life with me and my wife, Isa. I've only met her just a few years beforehand, but I was immediately swept up in a whirlwind of passion and excitement for the future. If only I had worked adamantly towards it. I never asked for too much. Simply to be happy, to be fruitful, to be free. And I thought I had found those things. How foolishly optimistic I was. The luxury of dreaming, I suppose, is reserved for those who needed not carry the burden of simply surviving. I dreamed, but I did not survive. Listen closely, if you will, for this is the story of my demise. I was spending a Sunday afternoon at my friend's house when he informed me that a neighbor, Miss Lucinda Lucky, had been raped and beaten nearly to the point of death. Now, I have known Miss Lucky for some time now. I have done some work for her and allowed her to stay under our roof when a fire left her without one. So I sat down to process the news when suddenly there was a pounding at the door. My neighbor went to go answer it and returned with a grave look on his face and authorities at his heels. "You under arrest, nigger." What am I under arrest for? "You know what you did, you black son of a bitch." Confused as I was by the accusations, I knew better than to resist. For a black man to be accused of such a monstrous crime was as good as being lawfully convicted. Could it be she had accused me of such a thing? More and more angry white men began to surround the jail. That's when Sheriff Ward moved me to Chillicothe. He knew what they would do. He knew what was brewing. To defend myself now and the hereafter seems scarcely fruitful. the crimes have been paid for. And whether or not the same man who committed the act was the same man who was being punished for it now seems painfully irrelevant. I had for months felt that trouble was coming on me. Why and for what purpose, I did not know. But I had put my trust in God's hands. Rumors swirled around town regarding the mob that was forming against me. I had not been convicted yet, but the people judged me, and I was going to pay with my life. It was no longer a matter of when, but of if. As for myself, I can care less as to whether I lived or died. But for my wife, my children, my mother, my brother, the thought of tarnishing their legacy killed me before any mob ever had a chance to. In the pitch blackness of the night, I heard the footsteps as angry men made their way to my cell. They had beaten me nearly to the point of death and put a noose around my neck like a beast to slaughter and brought me here to this very bridge. I begged pathetically for my life. I knew what would happen, but I so badly wished to live. You ready to pay for your crimes? How could I answer? For the crimes they accused me of, I did not commit. It wasn't me. I'm not the man. Okay. It was me. I can't breathe. I can't breathe.
Southern trees bearing strange fruit, blood on the leaves, blood at the root, black bodies swinging in the southern breeze, strange fruit hanging from the poplar trees, pastoral scenes of the gallant South, them big bulging eyes and the twisted mouth, scent of magnolia, clean and fresh, then the sudden smell of burning flesh. Here is a fruit for the crows to pluck, for the rain to gather, for the wind to suck, for the sun to rot, for the leaves to drop. Here is a strange
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Gigi Sakubin, Vice President for Diversity and Inclusion at Ohio University. I am humbled and honored to be here today to observe the anniversary of the lynching of Christopher Davis on November 21st, 1881. That day, a mob of white men headed to Athens from nearby Albany, breaking into the local jail and dragging Mr. Davis to the South Bridge overlooking the Hocking River. Mr. Davis had been accused of assaulting a white woman, an all too common accusation against Black men in the years after the Civil War. Before Mr. Davis got his day in court, the white mob hanged him. According to the Tuskegee Institute, between 1882 and 1968, 3,446 African Americans were lynched in the United States, often in acts of vigilante justice that turned racial violence into public spectacle. Today, we are here again reminded of the persistence of racial violence in our country. George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, Trayvon Martin, Tamir Rice, Walter Wallace Jr. Those are only some of the names that have entered our collective psyche. Here at Ohio University, we have long affirmed that Black lives matter, and we have stood in solidarity with all Black people and people of color in our country who have become victims of racist violence. But words are not enough. We must act together as one community to create an anti-racist, inclusive, and equitable environment in which all can be safe, grow, thrive, and realize their God-given potential. This is our solemn responsibility as a historically and predominantly white university. We work hard every day to make good on our promise of diversity and inclusion and to translate our core values into action and practice. And we know that we're standing on the shoulders of so many. I am so proud to be part of a university that has a long history of Black excellence, as well as student activism. Ohio students have never been content with the status quo. Throughout our history, they have asked the hard questions, resisted the easy answers, and demanded better for themselves and for our community. For example, Black students were very active in Athens in the context of the Civil Rights Movement. In 1965, 7 students traveled to Selma, Alabama to join John Lewis and other freedom fighters for the Selma to Montgomery marches. In the late 1960s, Black students organized to lobby President Vernon Alden to hire a dedicated Black administrator to help Black students, provide more financial aid to underrepresented students, expand Black curricula in classes, and admit more Black students to the university. And today, in the year 2020, Black students and students of color organize Black Lives Matter marches to protest racist police brutality and continue the fight for racial justice. These 3 snapshots are stand-ins for the immense legacy of Black Bobcats. To just name 3, in 1828, John Newton Templeton, who was born enslaved on a plantation in South Carolina and later freed, became the first African American in the state to receive a college degree. Martha Jane Hunley Blackburn was the first Black woman to graduate from Ohio University in 1916. And Dr. Francine Childs was the first tenured African American professor at Ohio University. Dr. Childs remains a stalwart for social justice and equality and was instrumental in helping found our Multicultural Center many years ago. We are the heirs to these and other Bobcats who fought so hard for what we have today: a Multicultural Center, Black student organizations, dedicated tutors, and empowerment programs for underrepresented students, and above all, a university that takes seriously its promise to be an engine of social and economic mobility for all our students. That being said, we still have a long way to go and a lot of work to do. No anti-racist work can happen without accountability and self-reflection. Recently, we formed the Acknowledgement and Reconciliation Committee to research the university's relationship to slavery, racial oppression, and native land dispossession. Headed by Dr. Robin Muhammad, Associate Professor in African American Studies, the committee's long-term goals are to develop plans and processes for collecting historical data and provide recommendations on how our campus spaces can reflect our core value of diversity and inclusion. To know where we are going, we have to continuously remember our past, learn from it, honor it, and move forward in our quest to create an anti-racist campus and community. I'm so very grateful to be part of this occasion, and I am honored to witness the dedication of this historical plaque. Thank you.
Like many of my family members and friends, and perhaps some of you, I have designated November as my medical month. Every November finds me in the presence of medical professionals and personnel, people to whom I make myself vulnerable in ways that will enable them to gain information that can improve the quality of my life. Up next for me will be my annual visit to the ophthalmologist. This is a visit that I always pray will go quickly. Here is the reason. The eye examination is an experience in discomfort for me. If the eye examination were only about choosing between lens A or lens B, or simply about selecting frames, I would have no issues with the examination. Yet anyone who has had their eyes probed knows that the procedures that take place earlier in the examination process are the actual sources of discomfort. First comes dilation, where the ophthalmologist applies a solution to your eyes that enlarges your pupils to the size of quarters. Then comes the dreaded puff of air that seems to extract all of the moisture from your eyes. These are two uncomfortable yet required steps in the eye examination process, for the information they produce can identify disorders and thus help us gain clearer and undistorted vision. In many ways, our participation in this service of dedication of the historical marker carefully placed near the site of the extrajudicial murder, the 1881 lynching of Mr. Christopher Davis, a black man, is an experience in discomfort for us all. For this marker forces uncomfortable dilation that requires us to focus on an era when racism was firmly sewn into the structures of the land, even in northern states like Ohio. This marker also imposes the disconcerting puff of air that demands that we acknowledge the presence of white supremacy that was tightly woven into institutional life in this land. In November 1881, both racism and white supremacy created an inescapable social and political vortex in which Mr. Davis' humanity and dignity and worth were swept away as he was accused of assaulting a white woman, arrested, afforded inadequate or maybe no counsel at all, had his version of truth deemed unworthy, untrustworthy on the strength of the testimony of the white woman. Mr. Davis was manipulated into pleading guilty and then lynched, murdered by a mob of angry white men, including city officials who took it upon themselves to be Mr. Davis's judge, jury, and executioner outside of the rule of law. They did not care that he was a human being created and crafted in the very image of God, that he was a father of 2 children or had a job in nearby Albany. To them, he was black and therefore not worthy of due process and therefore guilty. This account contributes to the plethora of uncomfortable and inconvenient historical truths outlining and detailing the racist brutality of our nation's past, systemic racist brutality that interrupts and intercepts our modern day ability to live out the ideals of our nation's self-identifying documents, such as we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men, and dare I say women, are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Accordingly, this marker is necessary because truth is necessary. It is required because justice is required. It must denote honor because a man of honor was murdered here. It must reflect historical honesty to help us dislodge generations of racist lies and distortions that haunt us even now. For there is an undeniable relationship between the extrajudicial racist lynching of Mr. Davis and the racist murders of Emmett Till, Walter Scott, Ahmaud Arbery, Sandra Bland, Philando Castile, Rayshard Brooks, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, and so many more black and brown bodies. As uncomfortable as they may be to endure, dilation and the puff of air during the eye examination can allow for disorders to be diagnosed and clearer and undistorted vision obtained. Athens and America, we have undergone the dilation and we have experienced the puff of air, and now the diagnosis is in. We do not have 20/20 vision because we are plagued by the continuation of 1881 disorders of racism and white supremacy that restrict our ability to focus. This nation seems unable to focus on the ways some misguided law enforcement officers treat black and brown bodies and communities with contempt. We seem unmotivated as a nation to focus on racist policies that disproportionately and unjustly flood jails, prisons, and death row cells with black and brown bodies. This nation, our nation, seems unwilling to focus on opening pathways for equitable jobs, affordable health care during a pandemic, and high-quality education for all. And this nation, our nation, seems utterly unprepared to focus on the acceptance that racism is a clear and present public health crisis for Black communities, and by default is holding hostage all of our communities across this broad land. I heard the ophthalmologist suggest that when a patient has vision disorders, very often corrective glasses will lead to clearer, undistorted vision. The Christopher Davis marker then tweets out to all who would read it that America needs a prescription for anti-racist glasses through which we recognize and see the dignity and worth of every human being, not as colorblind actors, but as people who see and affirm the beauty of diversity that is all around them. America needs a prescription for justice glasses through which we intentionally detect, disrupt, and dismantle racist and oppressive policies such as the death penalty, redlining, and gerrymandering. Finally, my friends, America needs glasses of hope through which we understand that as we engage in anti-racist policies and non-oppressive usage of power, we will categorically reject the moldy, leftover 1881 ideas of hate and discrimination as we endeavor to live life in the subjunctive mood where we are not imprisoned by life the way it was or the way it is, but are instead liberated by life the way it may be. Through this, we will know that our best days as a nation are not behind us, but are ahead of us. With vision, new vision, undistorted by racism and uncluttered by white supremacy, this nation, our nation, can make amends, offer apologies, and make restitution for past and present manifestations of racism. And we can see our way out of fear-driven racial, cultural, and political silos as you and I embrace a new wave of justice and equity-based mutuality, where we live out the words of an old spiritual saying, if I can help somebody as I pass along, if I can cheer somebody with a word of song, if I can show somebody that he or she is traveling wrong, that's how you know that my living has not been in vain. Amen. Amen.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let us march on till victory is won. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won.
Greetings, everyone. We are so pleased to be with you today from the Equal Justice Initiative. My name is Gabrielle Daniels, and I'm a project manager here at EJI.
And my name is Michaela Clark. I'm a Justice Fellow here at EJI.
And it has just been a pleasure for our team to be able to work with Athens County in Ohio and to really support their work and efforts in trying to memorialize the life and the lynching of Christopher Davis. We recognize that as we work with communities and work with partners, it's an opportunity for them to take that step to understand their local history, but also to invite the community into very important conversations.
Too long, our country has refused to acknowledge the history of racial injustice. From its founding, we justified the myth of racial inferiority with the genocide of the Native peoples who were here. And from there, we solidified that ideology with the enslavement of Black people. And that same ideology has sustained decades of racial terror, lynching, and terrorism for Black families and communities. We track this history and how this ideology has shaped the resistance to civil rights movement and this current moment of mass incarceration, where Black people and people of color are burdened with the presumption of dangerousness and guilt. And through our Community Remembrance Project, we are inviting you to be a part of this era of truth and justice. But in order to get to a place of reconciliation, we must first be willing to tell the truth about what happened. And here at EJI, we believe that we memorialize what is most important to us, and a historical marker represents building this narrative permanently into the physical landscape of the community. It is a physical confrontation with the truth. And by choosing to participate in the Historical Marker Project to memorialize Mr. Christopher Davis, Athens has chosen to memorialize, remember, and bring value to the victims of racial terror lynching by acknowledging how this history and legacy of racial terror and violence has shaped Athens and the country.
Athens has begun doing a work that not every community has stepped into as far as community remembrance is concerned. In 2019, they were able to host and facilitate a very successful soil collection project, and that made a really tremendous impact on beginning and advancing further conversations about the need to remember the role of truth-telling in the work of justice, and what does it mean for us today as we take responsibility for things that have been left over as a legacy of our past. As we have sought to be a part of the work that's happening in Athens and the work that's been happening related to the coalition's efforts to memorialize Christopher Davis, we were also pleased to partner with them through our EJI Racial Justice Essay Contest. This essay contest is an opportunity not only to offer scholarship awards and other prizes and especially opportunities for students to learn their history, but it's also a way for students to celebrate their voice in actually participating in this important conversation. When we partner with local communities and coalition partners across the nation, and especially here in Athens, it creates an opportunity through the essay contest for students to come on board and explain their thoughts around past historical experiences and their connection to present day injustices. As students are able to explore, learn, and then articulate their own thoughts and views, it creates another layer of conversation in the community and also connects them to the future opportunity to be change setters and conversation starters as well.
We are so grateful for all of the students that participated in this essay contest in Athens County, Ohio, including 3 folks that we would like to mention as honorable mention students, Zine Missner, Joey Moore, and Haley Lyons. We appreciate your work in this essay contest and thank you so much for your participation. And we would like to acknowledge our ranking winners. In 5th place, Natasha Fisher, who is a 12th grade student at Tri-County Career Center. We thank you for your participation, and Natasha was awarded $500 in scholarship funds. In 4th place, Hillary Tapler, an 11th grade student at Federal Hocking High School. and Hillary was awarded $750 in scholarship funds. In third place, we have Nathan Collette from Athens High School, a ninth grader. And Nathan was awarded $1,000 in scholarship funds. In second place, we have Nora Sullivan, also from Athens High School, a 12th grade student. And Nora was awarded $1,250 in scholarship funds. And finally, we would like to congratulate our first place winner, Julia Weber, also from Athens High School. Julia is an 11th grade student, and Julia's essay was awarded $2,500 in scholarship funds. So we are so grateful for all of the students that participated in this essay contest this round. You are truly doing the hard work and having the courage to connect the history of Athens County to this larger history of racial injustice in our country. And we truly believe that there can be no reconciliation and justice without remembering the past and confronting that truth. So we congratulate all of you in Athens County, Ohio, for having the courage to confront this past with the installation of this historical marker.
My name is Julia Weber. I'm a student at Athens High School, and I was the first place winner of the Equal Justice Initiative essay contest. I would like to preface this essay by acknowledging the privilege I have that comes with the color of my skin. I know that I will never experience these issues firsthand, but I am committed to learning all that I can about what has happened before, is happening now, and will continue to happen so that I can utilize my privilege in a way that assists and uplifts others. I've spent much of my time throughout high school working to educate myself in areas where I hold privilege so that I can attempt to raise awareness and help others amplify their voices. During my research, one issue that particularly caught my attention is the criminal justice system. The disproportionate sentences of Black criminals to that of white criminals who commit the same crimes is arguably one of the most important facets of this issue. When one examines the disproportionate rate at which Black people are sentenced to capital punishment in comparison to white people who have committed a similar crime, the statistics are astounding. Although this may not seem evident at first glance, there is a correlation that can be drawn between lynching and other forms of punishment and the modern death penalty. For many decades, the lynching of African American people was common practice throughout the United States. Due to our long, tumultuous, and downright shameful history pertaining to racial equity, discrimination and racial violence have never ceased to exist, but have merely changed forms. Throughout time, these forms of discrimination have evolved along with society. As more legislation was created in order to prevent blatant racial discrimination, violence against African Americans evolved in order to become more covert and legal. Black citizens were punished far more harshly than white citizens who were convicted for the same crime. The death penalty was, and is, also used far more frequently in cases in which a Black person is being accused. This pattern continues today, despite increased awareness and activism relating to racial justice. One resource that I have found to be insightful and provoking is the film BlacKkKlansman. This is a movie that focuses on a Black police officer who infiltrates a chapter of the Ku Klux Klan and is based on a true story. Though the film does not strictly deal with the death penalty, it does explore racial discrimination and oppression. I find this movie to be relevant to the history of racial discrimination because it focuses on the violence faced by people of color, which was produced at the hands of the most notorious white supremacist group in the United States. On a smaller scale, this film showcases the bravery and courage of Ron Stallworth, the Black police officer that this movie is based upon, in his work which infiltrated and dismantled a group that advocated against his existence. On a smaller scale, this film showcases the bravery and courage of Ron Stallworth, the Black police officer that the movie is based upon, in his work which infiltrated and dismantled a group that advocated against his existence. On a larger scale, however, this movie truly exemplifies how dangerous it was for Black people to simply exist in America during the 1970s. The movie ends with footage of the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia. It shows footage of both protesters and counter-protesters, as well as President Trump's remarks on the situation. It ends with a small tribute to Heather Heyer. I found this part of the film to be especially moving because of the way in which it connects past events to current issues and shows how we are still fighting against the same issues many years later. The impact of racial violence and inequity is severe and wide-reaching. This treatment of an entire demographic of America is irreversible and unacceptable. One of the most recent examples of this is the case of Nathaniel Woods. Woods was accused of murdering 3 police officers and sentenced to the death penalty. Both the governor and the Supreme Court refused to stop or temporarily halt his execution. In this case, another man confessed, yet Woods was still executed for a crime that he did not commit. This is a prime example of the blatant racism that still exists in America and systemic bias that is present within the criminal justice system. The ramification of this systemic bias is further divided economic class because so many Black people are being incarcerated and are unable to find employment. The social ramification of this is a misguided belief that Black people are more violent and more likely to be criminals due to being incarcerated at a higher rate, which again comes from this systemic issue. Both of these aspects have a tremendous impact upon our society. I believe that knowledge is power in most scenarios, but I also believe that it is imperative for people in power, such as elected officials, to learn about and understand this complex issue that affects so many people in our community. I believe that the awareness of systemic patterns of violence faced by Black people in America is a start, but this will continue to happen until an extreme culture shift occurs, accompanied by strong legislation which ensures equal treatment for all demographics. Throughout our history as a nation, systemic violence and oppression towards African Americans has always existed, though it has changed forms. The criminal justice system in America has disproportionately affected Black people, and they are sentenced to much harsher punishments than white people for the same crimes. This pertains specifically to the comparison of Black people versus white people who are sentenced to the death penalty. Many examples of this issue and the evolution of racial violence can be seen today. Although I know that I will never experience these issues personally due to my privilege, I hope to use my platform and privilege to uplift and support others who are affected by this.